My best friend betrayed me, so I let her destroy herself. If you told me 5 years ago that I'd eventually let my best friend implode without lifting a finger, I'd have laughed and called you dramatic. Claire and I used to joke that we'd end up living next door to each other in our 40s, trading wine for babysitting. We met in college, two broke girls with bad haircuts and oversized dreams. She was a communications major who could charm anyone into anything. I was the quiet design student with a sketchbook full of weird architecture and grocery lists. Claire was sunshine with caffeine. She could walk into a room full of strangers and have everyone convinced they'd met her before. I was the opposite, reserved, deliberate, allergic to small talk. But something about her energy made me feel seen. She was the loud half of our duo, and I was the grounding half. She'd drag me to parties. I'd drag her home before she lost her shoes. It worked. We graduated, got jobs in the same city, even found apartments a 10-minute walk apart. Claire went into PR, which was basically getting paid to talk. I started freelancing as a graphic designer, which meant I got paid to sit in silence and make pixels behave. We built a rhythm. Thursday night takeout, weekend thrift store runs, sharing every stupid meme, every heartbreak, every triumph. When she got promoted, I showed up at her office with cupcakes. When I got dumped, she showed up at my door with tequila and a PowerPoint presentation titled, "Why He's Garbage and You're Not." It wasn't perfect. No friendship is. Claire had a habit of making everything about her, and sometimes her jokes crossed into territory that stung. But I loved her like family. I trusted her with things I hadn't told anyone else. My anxiety, my insecurities, the time I almost dropped out of college because I thought I wasn't good enough. And she never judged, or at least she didn't show it. Then came Ben. Ben and I met through work, a quiet, steady kind of guy. The type who notices when your phone battery's low and hands you a charger without making it a big deal. He had this way of listening that made you forget anyone else existed. Our first date was coffee. Our second was cooking dinner together in my shoebox kitchen. By the third, I knew. Not fireworks, not fairy tale, just this deep, calm certainty. When I told Claire, she squealed so loud I dropped my phone. "Finally," she shouted, "someone who deserves you." She insisted on meeting him immediately because that's what Claire does. She inserts herself into every major chapter like an editor. The first dinner was perfect, I thought. They got along instantly. Too instantly maybe, but I didn't think much of it then. Claire was like that with everyone. Flirty, funny, magnetic. She could flirt with a coat rack and make it feel special. Ben found her hilarious. She found him adorably awkward. I sat there watching them banter about stupid movie trivia and felt this warm swell of gratitude. My best friend and my boyfriend liked each other. What could possibly go wrong? A lot, apparently. Over the next few months, the three of us became a little trio. Game nights, brunches. Double dates with Claire's on-again, off-again boyfriend, Evan, no relation to the twin story variety. I thought we were building community, family, the kind of adult friendships you see on TV where everyone knows everyone's coffee order. Sometimes, though, I'd notice things, little things, like how Claire would text Ben memes for the group but never actually send them to me. Or how she'd touch his arm when she laughed. Not in a romantic way, just comfortable, too comfortable. Once at a party, someone joked that if Ben and I ever broke up, he and Claire would probably end up together. They both laughed. I didn't. I told myself I was being paranoid, because that's what good people do. We gaslight ourselves first. Ben, for his part, never gave me a real reason to doubt him. He was affectionate, attentive, steady. But I started noticing how often he mentioned Claire. Claire said this hilarious thing. "Claire sent me that podcast you'd like. Claire told me you two used to, always Claire." At first, I brushed it off as normal. She was my best friend. Of course, she'd come up in conversation. Then one night, while we were watching a show, his phone lit up with her name. 11:37 p.m. He didn't hide it, just smiled, typed a quick reply, and put it face down. But I noticed. I always notice. When I mentioned it later, casually, he said, "She just sent me a TikTok about dogs. You know how she is." And yeah, I did. I knew exactly how she was. The kind of person who sends you 20 memes in a row when she's bored, who keeps herself in your orbit because she can't stand not being the center of someone's attention. I told myself it was fine. I told myself I was mature enough to not be jealous of my own best friend. But something shifted after that. The air between them changed, almost imperceptibly, like static before a storm. They started sharing glances that lasted a beat too long. Claire started teasing him more, the way she used to tease me. And sometimes, when I'd walk into a room, the conversation would pause just slightly before resuming like nothing happened. It's amazing what you can convince yourself of when you're in love. You can turn red flags into roses if you stare hard enough. Then came the night that should have told me everything. It was Claire's birthday. She decided she wanted a low-key celebration, which in Claire speak means 20 people, a rented bar space, and a theme. This year's was retro glam. She wore a sparkly gold dress and red lipstick that could start wars. I wore black because subtlety is my default. Ben came straight from work, still in his button-up, sleeves rolled to his forearms. When he walked in, Claire's eyes lit up in a way I'd never seen before, not even when she'd gotten her promotion. She threw her arms around him, laughing, whispering something in his ear that made him smile. That smile lodged in my chest like glass. I spent most of the night pretending everything was fine, smiling when people took photos, clinking glasses, dancing when Claire pulled me onto the floor. But every time I looked up, there they were, laughing, leaning close, orbiting each other like I wasn't even in the room. When the party ended, Ben offered to help clean up. I said I'd handle it with Claire. He insisted. Claire insisted back. I gave up. We were the last ones there, the three of us. I went to the back room to grab Claire's jacket. When I came out, they were standing by the bar, closer than I'd ever seen them. She was saying something low, and he was looking at her like he'd forgotten to breathe. They jumped apart when they saw me, and because I'm an idiot, I smiled. "You too good." Claire laughed. Too loud, too quick. "Just talking about your surprise party next month?" Ben nodded. "Yeah, totally." I remember thinking, liars always oversell the lie. I drove home that night with a pit in my stomach that wouldn't go away. Ben held my hand the whole drive. His thumb traced circles on my skin like a habit. It should have comforted me. Instead, I felt cold. When we got home, he kissed me goodnight and said he loved me. I said it back, and then I went into the bathroom, sat on the edge of the tub, and stared at my reflection until the words felt like static. I didn't have proof yet, just a gut feeling and a dozen tiny moments that didn't add up. But I've learned something since then. Betrayal doesn't always start with big cinematic gestures. Sometimes it starts quietly, with laughter that lasts too long and a friend who forgets where your boundaries end. And that's where it began. The truth didn't come to me in some dramatic movie scene. There was no lipstick on his collar, no whispered phone call in the dark. It came on a Tuesday, because of course it did. Ben was in the shower, humming off key like he always did. His phone was on the nightstand, screen lighting up with notifications every few seconds. Normally, I'd never touch it, but I wasn't normal anymore. I hadn't been for weeks. Something inside me had been whispering, well, look, for days. And that night, I listened. I told myself I wasn't snooping, just checking something, confirming a feeling. But that's the lie every betrayed person tells themselves before they open Pandora's box. His phone wasn't even locked, fingerprint sensor, and mine was saved for emergencies. I swiped up. Instagram, messages, email, nothing unusual. Then I saw it. The group chat. The one we three shared? Usual suspects, cute, innocent. Except I noticed something odd. The message thread was shorter than I remembered. Almost empty, as if someone had selectively deleted parts of it. My stomach tightened. I scrolled up, nothing incriminating, just memes, event plans, logistics. But then, under the pinned photos, I saw it, the little icon that says View All Media. I tapped it. Hundreds of photos, screenshots, memes, random nonsense. But buried between them, one video thumbnail, just 5 seconds long, uploaded 2 days ago. I clicked it. It wasn't explicit, it was worse. It was Claire filming herself laughing in Ben's apartment. My apartment, technically, since he basically lived with me. She was wearing his hoodie, my hoodie, oversized and soft gray, the one that still smelled like his cologne. She was making fun of some reality show on TV, panning the camera around the room. And then, for 1/2 second, the frame caught him sitting on the couch, shirtless, looking up at her with that same soft, stupid smile he used to give me. "Stop, Claire," he said in the clip, laughing. She giggled. "Make me." The clip ended. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't even breathe for a moment. I just stared at the screen, replaying that half-second loop in my head until it became meaningless pixels. Then, very calmly, I put the phone back where I found it, stood up, and went to the kitchen. I poured a glass of water, drank it, set it down, and stared at the wall for a full minute. My brain was silent, the kind of silence that comes before a scream. When Ben came out of the shower, towel around his waist, humming some tune, I smiled at him. I smiled. He kissed my forehead. He said he loved me. I said it back. I don't remember sleeping that night. I remember lying next to him, listening to him breathe, wondering how someone could sleep so peacefully next to a person they were slowly killing. The next morning, I acted normal. I went to work. I made breakfast. I even texted Claire a meme. I needed her to keep believing I was clueless. I started collecting moments, little pieces, screenshots of messages I'd once ignored, flirty emojis, a random calendar notification from the night he said he was working late. My gut twisted each time, but I didn't stop, because if I stopped, I'd start breaking. Claire kept messaging me like nothing was wrong. "Brunch Saturday? Want to watch something tonight? Ben told me you're swamped at work, poor thing." Yeah, poor thing. By the weekend, I had what I needed. Not a smoking gun, but enough smoke to choke on. Messages between them that weren't outright romantic, but dripped with subtext. Her calling him trouble, him calling her chaos. Private jokes about inside things. Late night timestamps that made my stomach curl. I remember staring at one text. Claire, if she knew half the things we talk about, she'd kill us LOL. He replied, good thing we're discreet. That was the moment I knew there was no misunderstanding left to cling to. But still, I didn't confront them because something inside me had shifted. A new sharp calm, the kind of quiet fury that doesn't want to explode. It wants to wait. The first test came 2 days later. We were all supposed to meet for dinner. The three of us and some friends. I almost canceled, but then I thought, no, let's see them perform. They were perfect actors, laughing, joking, pretending. Watching them made me nauseous, but also fascinated. Every touch, every shared glance, every accidental brush of hands was like watching two people rehearse their downfall. Halfway through dinner, Claire spilled wine on her sleeve. Ben immediately reached over with a napkin, dabbing at it like it was instinct. She looked up at him, that look again, the same one from the video, and for a moment, everything in the restaurant blurred. But instead of snapping, I smiled. I reached over, took the napkin from him, and said, I've got it. Their faces went pale, just slightly. A crack. I saw it. That flicker of panic that only guilty people have. That night, I decided I wouldn't expose them. I'd let them do it themselves. The plan wasn't really a plan, more of a refusal, a conscious decision to not intervene. I stopped initiating plans, stopped replying immediately, stopped feeding their narrative. I became quiet, controlled. I pulled my energy back so fully that the absence itself became suspicious. And predictably, that's when guilt started eating them alive. Claire texted more than usual, long rambling messages about missing me and things feeling weird lately. Ben got clingy too, overcompensating with affection, random gifts, unnecessary I love yous. It was almost poetic, watching them both scramble to maintain a lie that was already collapsing under its own weight. The universe doesn't always hand you justice neatly wrapped, but sometimes, if you're patient enough, it lets people trip over their own words. And that's exactly what Claire did. It started small, nervous babbling when we hung out, over-explaining harmless things. Then she began slipping, mixing up stories, contradicting herself. Once she mentioned a restaurant I'd never been to, but she said, remember when we... Before catching herself, each slip was a tiny, satisfying earthquake. I didn't call her out. I just nodded, smiled. Let her feel the heat of her own words. By week 3, she looked exhausted. By week 5, she couldn't stand to be alone with me without talking herself into knots. And then came the night everything unraveled. It was a Friday, another girls' night. I wasn't even planning to go, but she insisted. We need to reconnect, she said. It feels like you've been distant. Yeah, because you were screwing my boyfriend, but I agreed. I wanted to see how far she'd go to maintain the act. She made cocktails. We sat on her couch. She kept nervously rearranging things on the coffee table. I let her talk, and talk, and talk. Finally, she said it. Not the full confession, not yet, but the prelude, the classic self-sabotage monologue. You ever do something you can't take back? She said, staring into her drink. Sure, I said, like cutting bangs in 2018. She laughed, too loud, then quiet. No, I mean, something that changes everything. Something that hurts someone and you wish you could undo it, but you can't. I looked at her for a long time. Then I said, if you did, I'm sure they'd find out eventually. Her face went white. And that's when I knew I didn't have to say another word. The guilt was already doing my work for me. I left early that night. No fight, no accusations, just calm silence. The next morning, I saw it, a text from Ben. We need to talk. Of course we did. Ben's message sat on my phone like a ticking bomb. We need to talk. That's the sentence people use when they're about to hand you a wrecking ball and call it closure. I didn't reply, not immediately. I let him stew. By afternoon, another text came through. Please, Maya, it's important. I waited an hour, then typed back, okay, tonight. He came over around 7, holding that stupid look, the one people wear when they're about to confess something you already know. Nervous hands, half-rehearsed sentences, guilt in 1080p. I didn't say a word, just let him sit down. He started with small talk. You look tired, he said. I almost laughed. You made me tired. Then, after a long silence, he said it, the most cliché confession ever spoken by the guilty. There's something I need to tell you, and you're going to hate me. I didn't help him out. I didn't nod, didn't prompt, didn't make it easier. Let him twist. It's about Claire, he said. I waited. He rubbed his face like he could wipe the shame off. It happened once, a mistake. I didn't plan it. It just happened, I finished for him. Right, like gravity. He froze. You know? I shrugged. I figured it out a while ago. The look on his face was strange, like he didn't know whether to be relieved or terrified. I'm so sorry, he said. It didn't mean anything. I felt so guilty. I wanted to tell you, but you were too busy doing it again? He went silent, which was answer enough. I leaned back. You didn't come here to tell me the truth, Ben. You came here because you could feel it coming out without you. He flinched. That's the thing about liars. They think confession equals redemption. But confession is just fear of exposure dressed up as morality. He tried again. It was a mistake, Maya. I swear. It didn't mean... Don't finish that sentence, I said. You already told me who you are. You don't need to explain it. He opened his mouth, closed it again. I could see the gears turning, the desperate search for the version of the story that made him the victim. When he realized I wasn't going to cry or scream, he looked lost. Like he didn't know how to perform without an audience. He said he'd give me space. I said, good idea. When he left, he hesitated at the door. For what it's worth, he said softly, I do love you. I looked at him and smiled. I know, that's what makes it worse. Then I closed the door. I thought that would be the hardest part. But Claire, she made sure it wasn't over yet. 2 days later, she showed up unannounced. Her eyes were red. Her mascara streaked like she'd been in a bad music video. She didn't even knock properly, just stood there, half sobbing, whispering my name. Maya, please, can we talk? I wanted to slam the door, but something colder stopped me. I opened it just enough for her to see my face. She started babbling immediately. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. It was stupid, and I hated myself every second. You have to believe me. I don't, I said quietly. She froze. What? I don't believe you, I repeated, and I don't need to. Her mouth opened, then closed. I made a mistake. Stop calling it that, I said. You didn't drop a glass. You made a choice, repeatedly. She wiped her face with her sleeve. I didn't want to hurt you. Then you shouldn't have done it? Her lip trembled. We were drunk. Stop. And she did. She just stood there, eyes wide, waiting for forgiveness that was never going to come. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just looked at her and said, You've always been good at getting people to love you, but you never learned how to deserve it. That landed. I saw it hit her like a punch. She whispered, I didn't mean to fall for him. That made me laugh, really laugh, the kind of laugh that sounds like glass breaking. You didn't fall, Claire. You climbed. You saw what I had and decided you wanted it too. She broke then, started crying harder, hands over her face, muttering apologies I didn't want. I stepped back and said, You should go. When she didn't move, I added, If you really want to make it right, don't ever talk to me again. And she left. That should have been the end. But people like Claire can't stand being the villain. Within a week, whispers started circulating in our friend group. She'd told her version, that she and Ben had gotten too close after he confided in her about our relationship issues. That it was emotional, not physical, that it was complicated. The usual script, but I didn't correct anyone, I didn't post anything. I didn't defend myself, I just waited. Because guilt makes noise, and sure enough, it did. The cracks started in little ways. At brunch, one of our mutuals said, Claire mentioned you two had a falling out. I just smiled and said, Yeah, some truths fell out too. At a birthday party, Ben showed up alone. People asked why I wasn't there. He said I was working through things. Someone asked if that meant we'd broken up. He said, Not exactly. The hesitation told everyone exactly. By the next week, half our circle had pieced it together without me saying a word. The other half would hear soon enough. The funny part? The more they tried to downplay it, the guiltier they looked. Claire over-explained everything. Ben avoided eye contact with everyone. At one dinner, she blurted, It's not like we did it multiple times, and the table went dead silent. I wasn't even there. I heard it secondhand. Apparently, someone muttered, Nobody asked, and she left crying. That was the night she confessed. She called me around midnight, voice shaky. I told everyone, she said. Good, I said. I didn't mean to, she whispered. It just came out. Yeah, I said. That's what happens when you lie too long. The truth leaks. She started crying again. You hate me? I paused. No, Claire, I don't. I just don't care anymore. That broke her more than hate ever could. Ben tried again a week later, showed up at my door with flowers, begging for another chance. He said he was seeing a therapist, said he'd cut Claire off, said he'd do anything. I told him the truth. You already did everything, just not what you should have. I closed the door for good. The aftermath was quiet. People chose sides, most with me, a few awkwardly neutral. Claire quit her job a few months later, moved to another city for a fresh start. Ben started dating someone new within the year, which tells you everything. As for me, I went to therapy, learned how to stop apologizing for trusting people. I started running, picked up pottery, redecorated my apartment, deleted every photo that made me flinch. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about that first video. Her laugh, his look, the way it all seemed harmless. And I realized the real betrayal wasn't that they slept together, it was that they turned my safety into their secret. And when I finally understood that, something inside me stopped bleeding. People think revenge is fireworks, screaming, throwing plates, dramatic exits. But the best revenge, the kind that actually lasts, is quiet. It's the kind that doesn't announce itself. It just exists, breathing softly while the guilty choke on their own noise. I didn't plan revenge. I just stopped speaking for them. I stopped correcting the record, stopped filling in the gaps. Because the truth has a way of finding air, and guilt makes people talk far louder than the innocent ever could. At first, it looked like avoidance. I didn't show up at mutual gatherings. I ignored their texts. I archived our photos and changed my number. People assumed I was grieving, which I was, in a way. But not for the relationship. I was grieving the version of myself that believed loyalty guaranteed safety. Claire couldn't stand it. She was used to being the center of my orbit, my sounding board, my echo chamber. Without me, she had no control of the narrative. And when people started asking me what happened, I said the most devastating words I could think of. Ask her. That's all. No details, no bitterness, no elaboration. Just 2 words that detonated slowly in every conversation she had afterward. A month later, one of our mutual friends, Tara, added me to a new group chat. The Reboot Crew, she called it. Everyone but Claire and Ben. I didn't say anything about it. I just watched the chat fill up with memes, plans, casual jokes. It felt normal, healing. Then someone brought it up. Tara, so real talk. What actually happened between you and Claire? She's been weird lately. Me, oh, I think she just has a lot going on. Sarah, yeah, like guilt? There it was. The thing I didn't have to say. By the end of the day, word had spread through the friend group. Not from me, from her, because she couldn't stand the ambiguity. She couldn't let people fill in blanks that she wasn't writing herself. So she started over-explaining again. Every version of her story was different. One day, it was emotional confusion. The next, it was a mistake. Then it was, Maya and Ben were having issues. The more she talked, the less anyone believed her. Tara called me one night and said, you know what's crazy? You haven't said a word, but everyone's on your side. Claire's losing it. I said, I'm not on any side, I'm just done. And that was true. I didn't want vengeance, I wanted peace. The fact that my peace looked like her unraveling wasn't my fault. 2 months later, Claire texted me out of the blue. I think we need closure. Can we meet? Closure, the word people use when they want permission to feel better about what they did. I didn't respond. 3 days later, she posted an Instagram story. A black screen with white text. Sometimes good people make bad choices. I'm sorry to anyone I hurt. Vague, attention-grabbing, meaningless. But what she didn't expect was the comments. Who did you hurt? Is this about what happened with Ben? Oh, so it's true then? By morning, she'd deleted the post. That's when it hit me. I didn't need to lift a finger. The world was doing it for me. Ben didn't handle it much better. He started texting again. Hope you're doing okay. I think about you every day. I still care about you. He sent long, rambling emails about accountability and growth. He said he was going to therapy, that he'd learned so much about himself. You know what I realized reading them? He still thought it was about him. The apology wasn't for me. It was a performance for his own ego, a way to prove he wasn't the villain in his own story. So I stopped replying altogether. I blocked him on everything. The last thing I did before deleting his number was reply to his final text. I hope you heal too, just not with me. It was small, but it felt like closing a door that had been hanging open for too long. 6 months later, I saw them both for the first time since everything went down. A mutual friend, Alex, was moving out of state, and there was a going-away party. I debated not going, but something in me wanted to see how the ghosts looked in daylight. I wore a simple black dress, hair down, no armor. They were there when I walked in, standing together, but not touching. The air around them felt brittle, like old glass. Claire saw me first. She froze mid-sentence. Ben turned, and his face went pale. I smiled politely, said hello, and went straight to the bar. People whispered, eyes followed. But I didn't give them a show. I laughed with old friends, toasted Alex, danced a little. I existed. That was enough. At one point, Claire tried to approach me. She hovered for a while, drink in hand, before finally mumbling, Maya, can we talk? I looked at her, calm as ever. No, Claire, you already said everything you needed to. And I walked away. Later that night, Tara told me Claire left early, crying in the parking lot. Ben stayed, awkwardly quiet, trying to make small talk with people who didn't want to look him in the eye. That's the thing about silence. It echoes in every room they enter. By the end of the year, I'd moved into a new apartment across town. I'd taken up running, started painting again. I made new friends, people who didn't know the story, who liked me without context. One night, over drinks, someone asked if I believed in karma. I said, only if you stop looking for it. because I'd stopped waiting for the universe to punish them. Watching them live with what they'd done was punishment enough. A year to the day after everything fell apart, she sent one last message. No emojis this time, no manipulation, just text. I think about you a lot. I wish I could undo it. I lost my best friend and I hate myself for it. I hope someday you can forgive me. I didn't reply, but I did screenshot it. Not to share, not for revenge, just as a reminder that once someone could love you like a sister and still choose to stab you in the same heartbeat. And that's how the silence became my revenge. Not anger, not exposure, not retribution. Just absence. Because nothing terrifies a manipulator more than realizing they don't matter anymore. Time doesn't heal in a straight line. It moves in weird circles. Some days I woke up feeling completely fine. Others, I'd catch a random memory, her laugh, his voice, that stupid gray hoodie, and feel the burn rise up my throat again. But it never stayed long. The pain became background noise instead of a storm. The first real sign I was healing was that I stopped checking their social media, not out of willpower, just because I forgot. One day I realized I hadn't thought about them in a week, and it felt like finding an extra 20 in an old coat pocket. I started spending that mental energy on myself instead. I changed my routine, got a cat, joined a ceramics class on Saturdays. I started saying no more, not to people, to the version of myself who tolerated everything just to keep the peace. That was the real revenge, I think, becoming a person who didn't need to think about revenge anymore. About 6 months after the last time I saw them, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. It was long. I almost didn't open it. It was from a woman named Lena. She said she'd started dating Ben a few months ago. She'd found my number from an old message thread on his laptop. I hope this isn't weird, she wrote. I just want to know if there's anything I should know about him. You don't have to answer. I just have a feeling something's off. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen. My first instinct was to warn her, to tell her every disgusting detail, to give her the roadmap of what he'd done to me so she could escape early. But then I thought about it, about how much I'd changed. It wasn't my job to protect other people from lessons I'd already learned. So I replied simply, trust your gut, always. She sent back a heart emoji. I never heard from her again. And weirdly, that felt like closure. Life went on. It always does, even when you think it shouldn't. I started dating again, slowly, carefully. The first few months were awkward. I kept flinching at kindness, waiting for it to rot. But over time, I met someone who didn't ask me to forget my scars, just to stop apologizing for them. He wasn't Ben, and that was the best thing about him. He asked once, do you ever think about them? I said, not really. They feel like characters from a movie I stopped watching. He smiled. Then you won. I don't know if winning is the right word. There are no trophies for surviving betrayal. There's just your own company, finally feeling peaceful again. A year later, I ran into Claire. It wasn't planned. I was leaving a bookstore downtown, and there she was. Hair shorter, face thinner, holding a coffee cup with shaking hands. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then she smiled. Small, fragile. Hey, she said softly. Hey, you look good. So do you, I lied. We stood there, silence heavy but not cruel. Then she said, I miss you sometimes. I thought about all the nights I cried, all the times I doubted my worth, all the ways she twisted the knife. And still, I didn't feel hate, just distance. Yeah, I said. I miss who we were, but not enough to go back. She nodded. There were tears in her eyes, but she didn't cry. She just whispered, I get it. And that was it. No apology, no drama, just two people standing in the ruins of what used to be friendship, realizing that sometimes closure isn't a conversation. It's recognizing that the other person finally understands what they lost. When I walked away, I didn't look back. And that was the first time I truly felt free. People always ask what I learned from it all. It's hard to summarize betrayal without turning it into a cautionary tale. But if I had to try, I'd say this. Not everyone who loves you wants the best for you. Some people love you the way fire loves oxygen, passionately, destructively, without care for what it consumes. The trick is learning when to stop feeding the flames. I learned that boundaries are a kindness, that silence is stronger than shouting, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all, because nothing terrifies a guilty person more than your indifference. I live in a small apartment with too many plants and a cat named Luna who thinks she owns the place. I paint again, I run again. I laugh without flinching. Sometimes I get messages from old friends asking if I've forgiven them yet. The answer is yes, but not for their sake, for mine. Because forgiveness isn't letting them back in. It's setting yourself free from the story. I don't think about Claire and Ben much anymore. They became background characters in a chapter that ended a long time ago. The other day, I found an old photo of the three of us, arms around each other, smiling like idiots. I looked at it for a while, then put it in the trash. Not out of anger. just because it didn't belong anywhere in my life now. And that's what healing looks like, I think. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just quiet moments where you realize the pain doesn't live here anymore.